dedicated to empowering you with information
to make positive choices
and be advocates for your overall well-being.
Welcome to The Health View. Welcome to The Health View. I'm Yvonne Dunetz, and today we are going to be learning about enhancing and promoting brain health, understanding the evidence of how certain nutritional strategies can reduce risk or slow progression of cognitive decline, as well as maintain emotional and mental health. My guest is Dr. Nancy Emerson Lombardo, who is the founder and president of Healthcare Insights, LLC, and the Brain Health and Wellness Center. She is the developer of memory preservation nutrition and is an adjunct research assistant professor of neurology at Boston University School of Medicine. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Nancy Emerson Lombardo. I'm delighted to have you with us today. So let's jump in.
Okay.
What are the strategies that you would like us to really know about?
Well, I'm going to outline some strategies that are related directly to the memory preservation nutrition program, and they're all based on evidence studies that come out of neurology and other nutritional science. But as I want to preface this by saying, while I have specific strategies related to brain health based on specific studies of different kinds, I'm a fan of Michael Pollan and some other folks that are really taking the broad view of where we are in our society with our nutritional status.
Just for a moment,
Yes.
for our listening audience, clarify, who is Michael Pollan so that they understand the importance?
Michael Pollan wrote a couple of really critical books. The first was An Omnivore's Dilemma,
Yes.
Because we humans can eat everything,
Right.
and so how to choose. And then he wrote a very thoughtful book, and it was called In Defense of Food, which is kind of an odd title, but his point was that if we're talking about food, real food, it's actually good for us. And one of his, I often quote how he opens the book with the phrases, what we need to eat. Like, we are all concerned about what to eat. There's more money spent in this country on trying to figure out, what should I eat, doctor? And the simplest solution is to eat real food. He has three phrases. Eat food, meaning real food, whole foods, not too much, mostly plants. That summarizes it. And when I look at all the piles of evidence, I've looked at over 700 studies and counting, that really encapsulates some of, like, in terms of what foods do I actually eat. That's really helpful. Another understanding that's actually evolved just over the 10 to 15 years I've been doing this work is clarification that some of the food advice that we were getting from the government, which was based on, it turns out, not accurate studies, that we should eat low-fat diets to solve our heart disease problems, was totally wrong. And so there are bigger ideas that, and they're totally consistent what we're finding in the field of brain health. So one of the ideas is that the low-fat hypothesis was wrong. And so a lot of the food that the food industry is producing for us in processed foods are not good for us. Because what did they replace saturated fat with was salt and sugar. And especially the sugar and the refined carbs are what's making us sick. But I also agree with Michael Pollan and some others like Mark Hyman that to take just one reductionist theory, that one strategy will solve all our health problems, is inaccurate. That's why we have the term reductionist.
Yes.
And scientists sometimes get into that trap because it's easier to get funded to study one nutrient or one food. Mm-hmm. And really, as human beings, we eat bunches of food.
Right.
And traditional cuisine, one advice I give to people is think about how your grandparents ate or great-grandparents, the traditional ethnic culture that you might be related to. That's going to be healthier than what we call the Western diet. And the Western diet is mostly refined grains. And as Pollan put it, we've shifted from eating leaves to eating seeds. Now, many seeds are actually great for brain health, but he's talking about the macro shift in how we eat and the result of that. Vegetables are loaded with all sorts of nutrients that we need, but they come in a vehicle that we need the whole vehicle, not just the individual nutrients. And green leafy vegetables for the brain turn out to be the most important. And all the epidemiological studies, they'll show out of all the vegetables, they're the star for the brain.
And what does it do for the brain?
Well, I don't think we know all that it does, but we know some of the things that are in it.
Okay.
First of all, if you think of a green leaf, it's capturing the power of the sun. That's
Exactly.
where photosynthesis.
Yes.
And so you've got vitamin E in there. You've got omega-3s, which are essential for the brain. The brain is made of the highest concentration of omega-3s in our bodies is in the brain. And our brains are 60% fat. So that tells you right there that fat is good for us. But it's what kind of fats?
Exactly.
All right. And omega-3s is one of the ones that we want to emphasize. The vitamin E is in there to protect the omega-3s from oxidizing. And there are all sorts of B vitamins. Some green leafy vegetables have SAMe, which is people know about it more as an antidepressant effect, but it actually helps the whole metabolism that helps protect our DNA. So it's a much more important substance.
What type of healthy fats are good for the brain?
Yeah. So healthy fats, again, we can't be reductionists and say the only strategy is to eat more omega-3s. That is a very important strategy. The Western diet is almost devoid, whether it's because we shifted what our animals eat from pasture-fed, which the greens that they eat, whether it's grass or weeds, full of omega-3s and all these wonderful phytonutrients. Switch them to grain, especially just corn, then you took their diet from here, and it's very narrow and very devoid of omega-3s.
And then, of course, the chemicals that are added to their...
Yeah, and the chemicals and the hormones, that's an added problem. Mm-hmm. Now, in addition to having more omega-3s, which we can get by eating more leafy greens, nuts and seeds, like walnuts have a lot of omega-3, so do chia seeds, hemp heart seeds, and flax seeds would be the least expensive and most easily available type of seed. And then, of course, fish and fish oil. Or if you can't eat fish, there are marine oils that produce just DHA from algae.
So the wild Alaskan fish would be the ones.
Well, all
versus
all
the
fish
farmers.
and seafood have some. And as farm-raised fish, it depends on what they're feeding the fish, just
Correct.
like what are they feeding the chickens.
Correct.
It's safer to get wild-caught, but I also tell people if you hate salmon and mackerel, well, eat the fish that you like and eat a lot of it. I recommend 3 times a week on the fish. Okay. And I do recommend people take a fish oil or marine oil supplement because most of us simply aren't getting enough from our food. So
you've covered the good fats.
Yeah. Now, the other fats that there's only one fat that is poisonous, and that's the partially hydrogenated fats. That's an artificial fat that we made to replace the supposedly dangerous saturated fat. Turned out to be poison to our systems and behind a lot of our problems, but not the only source of problems. Then saturated fats we're looking at in a different way. They're not as dangerous as people thought. Turns out if butter, it comes from a cow raised on grass, guess what? There's even omega-3s in the butter, same as in the lard if the pigs are eating in the pasture. So in the brain area, we're still not sure how much saturated fat might be too much. So I do suggest we don't go hog wild on the saturated fats from animal sources, but I'm thinking we'll find that saturated fats from plant sources are going to be perfectly fine. Okay. And you can have some from animal. It's not like you have to avoid it altogether. We're in a fat phobia that we need to correct. Okay, then the other fat that we need to not avoid, but just watch the balance. As we're increasing omega-3s, we should be decreasing omega-6s. They come from the seed oils.
How do we do that? How do we decrease it?
How do we do that is by focusing on having more omega-3s from the sources I mentioned. And then what you want to do is for your main cooking oils, use olive oil, which is a monounsaturated fatty acid. It will have a little bit of omegas. Everything's mixed. Everything has a little saturated, a little this, little that. But you want oils that are dramatically healthier. So one would be olive oil, which we know is directly positive for the brain, partly the antioxidants in the olives that are into the extra virgin olive oil. That's why you need extra virgin. And you also, the monounsaturated is very good for us, and it's not O6. And then canola oil has O3 in it. And
the difference between O6 and O3?
Well, O3 is what our brains are made of, anti-inflammatory, allows our brain cells and our body cells to be more permeable, so all the neurotransmitters and all our metabolism works better and faster. Okay. The omega-6s are pro-inflammatory. They actually, we need some. It's not like we're trying to avoid them altogether. No, just less. Because they help our immune system do its thing, but in the process, they're pro-inflammatory. Okay. They also kind of block the action of omega-3. So you want a balance. Okay. We're all about balance.
Absolutely.
You know, we want some of every. What's great is when you get into this, everything's delicious.
Yeah, right.
You know, and when you eat more healthy fats, you automatically will reduce your craving for sugar, which is the most toxic of all our refined foods.
So the sugar is, in fact, one of the real brain, would you call it killers?
Yeah. I shouldn't be that strong. And it's excess sugar. Because of course.
Because everything has sugar in it.
Well, we're meant to have the kind of sugar that's in a whole food, like fruits. Right. Fruits are full of fructose. And they're also full of all these other wonderful nutrients, phytonutrients that help our brain directly. They're antioxidants, they're anti-inflammatory. They help our brain function in many different ways. And there's a little bit of sugar in our root vegetables. That's how the plant is storing energy. Right. There's a little tiny bit in beans and nuts and seeds. But that's fine because there's so much else in there. There's a tiny amount of sugar in those things. So the more we can eat whole foods and the less processed foods, the better. What happens in our processed foods, they're full of refined grains mostly, but even when they have whole grains, they often have a lot of added sugar. And we use the American Heart Association's suggested limit of 6 teaspoons of added sugar for a woman and about 9 for a man per day. And that really isn't very much. You have 1 can of soda and you're over your limit.
Oh, yes, soda has what?
And you really have to watch on the fruit juices because so many of them are really fruit cocktails and mostly sugar. So you have to read the labels. We teach people how to read the labels. Yes. Right now, you can't tell from the amount of sugar on the label whether it's from the whole food itself, like lactose in, say, yogurt. Natural yogurt has some lactose in it. That's safe sugar to eat. But if they add sugar, then it becomes less of a good choice. So you have to read the ingredients list and see how far up to the top the different kinds of sugar, and there's like 60 kinds of sugar. So it's really a little chore. But if you eat, that's why it's so much easier if you just say eat whole foods. Like you could take Greek yogurt, which is high in protein and all these wonderful probiotics that we need also to be healthy for our brain and body, and add your own fruit. And if it's not sweet enough, add a little stevia. We recommend stevia as a safe natural sweetener. So that's a couple of the strategies: less sugar, less refined carbs.
More whole foods.
More whole foods.
More greens.
More greens. You want more antioxidant-rich foods of all kinds. That's your nuts, seeds. Whole grains are very important. When you eat grains, they should be whole. At least, I say 60-70% of whatever you eat every day.
Give examples of whole grains.
Well, whole wheat. Okay. Brown rice. Those are the 2 most common. Then there's other grains that we haven't fooled with. Oats are always whole. We never took away the whole grain there. And then quinoa is a natural. It's a seed, and I also believe we should eat a variety because we still don't know all the different nutrients our body should have. So if we eat a variety, so quinoa, and I already mentioned chia seeds, flax seeds. All of those are seeds are whole grains. Barley. That has, some people worry about gluten. I don't feel you should unless you've been shown to be gluten intolerant, which you can find out from simple tests. Let's see. So lots of antioxidants, spices and herbs. People often don't think of what powerhouses they are, and you don't need much of it to have a lot of power for you that are antioxidants, anti-inflammatory.
Give some examples of the most powerful ones.
Well, and really pick the ones you like. But turmeric is known to be the king of spices.
Yes.
Highly anti-inflammatory, will lower your blood sugar, lower your cholesterol level. Ginger's right behind it.
Okay.
Ginger also is antiviral and helps your digestive system.
Okay.
And the more your digestive system is healthy, the more you can absorb the nutrients from the good, delicious food you eat.
Okay.
And then from the Italian world, we've got rosemary, basil, and several others. Oregano. Oregano is another powerhouse. A lot of them are in the mint family. So even though you wouldn't think oregano and rosemary are in the mint family,
No, you
they
wouldn't.
are.
No, you wouldn't.
So if anyone wants to see more about that, there's a little video clip on my website, brainwellness.com.
Okay.
Right on the first page, if you scroll down, it says something about brain foods in the produce aisle.
Okay.
It goes into a lot of detail of the different kinds of leafy greens and the different kinds of vegetables and what they bring. And of all the fruits, the berries would be the powerhouses.
Blueberries.
Because any kind of
Any
berry.
kind of
any
berry.
kind. Blueberries there's been more research on them.
Yes.
And they're great berry, but some people don't like them or can't eat them. And every berry that's been looked at has been a powerhouse, whether
Good.
from the U.S. or other countries. It's partly because they're small, so you get a lot. They're a very nutrient-dense food, not too much sugar for the volume, and delicious besides that. Other areas of antioxidants would be like tea and coffee, and dark chocolate is another powerhouse. Chocolate, even in I try to recommend people use dark chocolate because they're the ratio of the antioxidants naturally in cocoa outweigh the damage that the sugar in the sugar could do.
So
Once
they
you
need to
get
be
to milk-
over 65 or 72% cacao or whatever in order to make sure that you have the quality, so it's less in sugar in order to do that.
Right. Even so, eating any kind of chocolate has been shown to be beneficial because you've got at least some antioxidants compared to that to a piece of candy that's pure sugar.
So if you're going
Or
to have a
starch.
sweet craving or whatever else,
for
go for
chocolate.
the excellent dark chocolate with
Yes.
the higher level of the
Yeah, the highest
cacao.
and you can train your palate to enjoy the darker chocolate.
What other strategies?
Okay. Well, I hinted at it with the sugar. We want to have healthy blood sugar. So
Yes.
if people already have diabetes, they really have to watch what they eat. But even pre-diabetes, you're in trouble because what happens, your hippocampus starts shrinking. People don't know our brain lives on sugar in terms of its energy,
Yes.
but it likes it in whole foods. It likes it in a slow, steady fashion, not the big jolts we give it in a modern society foods. So what excess sugar does is it starts destroying the memory center of the brain. And the hippocampus also relates to our ability to have empathy. So it's
Interesting.
really quite, and the other thing that sugar does, it's pro-inflammatory. It'll make your joints ache when you have too much. Most people don't know that. It also, because it's pro-inflammatory, it also, for Alzheimer's disease, it speeds up the process of the beta amyloid buildup in the brain. So it does about 4 or 5 things that are toxic to our brains. And so I really recommend that people tamp down the amount of sugar, and it's not just sugar, it's the refined carbs and starches that the body converts to sugar.
Okay.
How you do that, if you focus on eating the good foods, and in fact, if you eat more of the healthy fats, forget the low-fat strategy. That was wrong. If you eat more of the healthy fats, you will satisfy your hunger need, and you won't crave the sugar so much because it's really hard. Sugar is very addicting. If you just try to tamp down the amount of sugar you're eating and just eat, of course I'm recommending more vegetables
Of course.
and more fruit. If
Of
you
course.
just do that,
Yes, that
it's
will
going
make
to
a
be
huge
difficult.
difference.
You really need the healthy fats to help you tamp down
And
the
those
sugar
healthy
craving.
fats, as you said, come in the nuts and come into seeds.
So I
and-
sometimes tell people, look, every study that's done on nuts, adding nuts to the diet. They show health benefits without people gaining weight. One book I'm going to read soon, I think, is Mark Hyman's. He's got a book out that's called Eat Fat and Get Thin. And this is part of the way the metabolism works.
Surely.
So another strategy is you do want to have really watch your cholesterol, but you can do that not by not eating cholesterol. That's another new finding that came out. Cholesterol in food is not what gets us into trouble. It's eating the sugar, which excess sugar our liver converts to cholesterol, the very type that gets us into trouble when it's oxidized.
Okay.
The LDL. So it's really wonderful how if you follow just a couple of shifts in what you eat, it actually helps you gain all these strategies. So another thing you're trying to do is reduce inflammation. But everything I just said helps you do that. More omega-3s, more fish in your diet, more green leafy vegetables, more plant foods, less animal foods, tamping down the sugar and the refined carbs, all will give you a more anti-inflammatory state in your body. Now, inflammation is dangerous because it speeds up the deterioration of your brain. It speeds up the buildup of the A-beta protein and the phosphorylated abnormal tau.
Which will cause memory loss?
Yes, well, those are the two pathological proteins that are implicated in Alzheimer's disease. Do we yet know exactly how it all works? No, but we know inflammation speeds it up. We still don't know, is tau the main culprit? Is it A-beta? A-beta is easier to study. That's what a lot of the drugs that are on the market, I'm not on the market, but under testing,
Yes.
are really A-beta strategies. And we still don't know really what, maybe it's something before all that, but we know inflammation speeds it up. We know eating too much sugar speeds it up. And what's beautiful about all these healthy brain foods that I've been mentioning is they all individually, if you test them in the lab, either in cell cultures or with mice bred to have Alzheimer's, they will decrease the amount of A-beta in the brain.
So you can actually turn around the progression that has been being made in the brain
yes.
by what you have eaten before.
Yes, and we now
And how
have some
quickly can it
evidence.
respond? If you've eaten poorly for the past 40 years of your life, by changing your food intake and really eating whole foods and doing what you suggest, you can literally turn it around?
Yeah, yes, but we know the details of all that? But I think that some of these strategies, it takes a little time to change what you eat. It doesn't happen overnight. People know that that's difficulty.
Yes.
But I think with these newer strategies of focusing on healthy fats and your leafy greens, that's a beginning point.
Okay.
And we now have imaging evidence. Well, first of all, we know how quickly eating the wrong foods will start showing up. Suzanne Kraft did a study in humans.
Yes.
Having them, half of them eat a very unhealthy diet, high in high glycemic index foods.
Yes.
And the other one a low. And within a month's time, because you couldn't do it longer than that, it was such a dangerous diet for the ones on the bad diet. In a month's time, you could see a difference in the A-beta levels and in their mental functioning on a certain very sensitive test.
Really? And then once reversed, did it change? Once the diet shifted?
It was just a month study, but another study that was reported last year in Australia, they've been following people. It's not an intervention study. They find out what people eat, and they have a point system to see how close they are to the Mediterranean diet, which is one of the known brain healthy diets. We've got some clinical trial evidence on that. And they could tell that the ones that had adhered more to a Mediterranean style diet, that's eating foods typical, that they're not Mediterranean, they're in Australia. They had slower rates of buildup of this problem, A-beta, which we can now see in the brain in live people. You can image that.
It's amazing,
and they could see the slower buildup over a 3-year period of time. They were imaging them every year for 3 years. And also with meat. If you tended to eat a lot of meat compared to other foods, that also speeded up it increased the rate of A-beta gain. So we're starting to be, but to answer your question, it will take, I think, some more work and careful study, but it's really exciting.
It is exciting.
And because the same diet helps you with heart disease, diabetes, cancer. I didn't even know it's really an anti-cancer diet.
So isn't it phenomenal that we have the power and the
Yes.
choice within us
Yeah.
by going the route of eating whole foods and really thinking and choosing wisely? We can have excellent brain health. We can literally help our minds not to go down the cognitive decline.
And
We-
at the same time, improve our emotions, because
Our
all
mo-
these same, if another set of colleagues are in the mental health field, well, it's really the same brain,
Surely.
but it's a very similar diet that they're proposing.
So it helps
Yeah.
emotionally, mentally, physically, and all around to
Right.
help us be sharp.
And then meanwhile, our heart's going to function better. We're less likely to develop diabetes. We're less likely to develop cancer. And basically, these are the diseases of civilization.
Absolutely.
And they can be reversed by if we eat well, and exercise is like a partner.
Absolutely.
There are other lifestyles like getting a good night's sleep.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of these are what our mother used to tell us, or our
Absolutely.
grandmother, right? And meditation.
Absolutely.
Meditation helps grow the part of the hippocampus that the sugar shrinks, the empathy part.
It
I mean,
really
it's
helps
just-
tremendously, and
and
that
then,
has been shown through research.
yeah.
What else as we summarize?
Well, I like Chinese medicine, Tai Chi, and acupuncture. That's
Yes.
another part. of health.
Qigong also.
Qigong, all of those that help us have a better energy balance. Social engagement turns out to be extremely important, and it's a stimulant to the brain. We now are getting better evidence that, yes, indeed, keeping your mind active into your 80s and 90s will help you maintain your brain or maintain your sharpness. But part of the way we do that is by talking to each other.
Absolutely.
Meeting new people,
Exactly.
having new adventures. It doesn't have to be just by, brain games or.
But brain games are also very good
Yes,
for us.
yes.
Now,
Well, if certain ones that
like
have
what?
been
What would
tested,
you
some-
quickly recommend?
Well, I understand Posit Sciences, they just came out with positive results from an NIH study.
Yes.
People should go to the elts.org website
Okay.
and look for the latest news releases. We just had our major conference last year.
Okay, and your
Last
website
week.
quickly is?
Brainwellness.com.
Excellent. Well, this has been a wonderful summary, and we thank you, and we empower everybody to make those healthy choices.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Until next
Thank
time.
you.
The preceding program